Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class, we will learn Tosfos Divrei Maschil, Pashat Balabayas Es Yadei. Let's begin. Pashat Balabayas Es Yadei. Tema l'ri, it's a wonder to the ri. A might tzarech lemisni tarti. Why does it need to teach two cases of Eitzah and two cases of Achanasa? The oni, that of the oni, with the Balabayas, and that of the Balabayas. V'chein berei Shavuos, also in the beginning of Masechta Shavuos. The Mefarish of Gemara explains in the Gemara, Shtayim, that when it says Shtayim, Shein Arba, the word Shtayim is the oni is for the oni, with the Balabayas, and for the Balabayas. And the question is, Ma Shayach l'kreis Shtayim. How does it make sense to call it two? Mali ani, mali usher. What's it to me if it's an ani, if it's an usher? It's just one case. Eitzah. The ani could do it, the usher could do it. We would say no, there's two. Eitzah of the ani and the Eitzah of the usher. How does it make sense to call it two? We don't teach Eitzah for a 20-year-old and a 30-year-old and a 40-year-old and a 50-year-old. They're just all included under Eitzah. So why is it that we do separate the Eitzah of the ani and the usher and call it two cases? Ma shayach l'kreis Shtayim. How does it make sense to call it two? Tosfos answers, it seems to the re, the itzrich lashem inam, we do need to teach both of them. Mishum de Eitzah malacha gruhi, because Eitzah is a weak malacha. The first way we see that Eitzah is weak is because it makes no change in the item. We just move it from one place to the other. All of the malachas change the item. It's two things, the person attached it to one. That's a malacha. It's one item, he broke it into two. That's a malacha. Here there's no change in the item. Now Tosfos gives another example. The mali meitzim rishas hayachad rishas harabim. What's it to me if a person takes something out of rishas hayachad to rishas harabim? Mali meitzi, what's it to me rishas hayachad to rishas hayachad? If he took him from rishas hayachad to another rishas hayachad, in either case, he removed it from the rishas hayachad it was originally in. Nevertheless, we distinguish between the two cases and say it's rishas harabim is a malacha, to a different rishas hayachad is not. And as a result of the fact that it's a weak malacha, we would not learn the Isser of Eitzah of the Ani from the Isser Eitzah of the Balabayas. Therefore, we can't just say the case of the Balabayas. Balabayas money, we wouldn't learn the case of the Balabayas from the Ani, so we can't just say the Ani. We need to say both of them. Now, just to point out that two things. Number one is this still demands a further explanation, because we don't say Eitzah for a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, and a 50-year-old. We say Eitzah, and it includes all of those ages. So back to our original question: why doesn't the ani and usher, why aren't they included under the umbrella of general Eitzah? We must say that the Eitzah of the ani, the Eitzah itself is different than that of the Balabayas, and the one of the Balabayas is different than the ani. Each one has a strength the other one doesn't have, and therefore, if we said one, we wouldn't know the other. What is that? That's explained in the flowchart here. The second point is that really at this point, Tosfos on some level is finished. He asked this question. Why do we have the case for the ani and the usher? And he gave his answer, because the malacha grew, we need to teach both, otherwise we wouldn't know both of them. From here on, Tosfos now will present two proofs that it says a malacha grew, and then we'll get into a side discussion as a result of some of the information we present in the proof. So really over here we asked our question and our answer, and the rest of the Tosfos is proving this or a side extended discussion. Let's continue. V'teita says Tosfos, you should know this is so, that Eitzah is a weak malacha, and that the ani can be learned from the usher and the usher from the ani. And this that we need two psukim to tell us about the malacha of Eitzah. Like we learn at the beginning of Perek HaZerik, from the pasuk Vayikale Am Mehavi, we learn of the malacha of Eitzah, because Moshe Rabbeinu told the people there's enough malacha, stop the malacha, and then it says they stopped bringing stuff. So we see that bringing stuff, carrying, is a malacha. Over Sefer Perek Hamad Erevin, at the end of the first parak of Masechta Erevin, Nafkalon, we learn out the din of Eitzah Mikra Achrina from a different pasuk. Did Darshinan, because we darshan Al Yetzi Ish Mimkemei, a person shouldn't leave his place. We explain it to mean Al Yetzi, he shouldn't carry out. V'asam Pirashni, over there Tosfos says I explained how that pasuk Al Yetzi Ish Mimkemei relates to the malacha of Eitzah. But at any rate, we have two psukim for Eitzah, Vayikale Ham Mehavi and Al Yetzi Ish Mimkemei. V'hainim Meshum, and this is because the malacha grew, because it's a weak malacha. And Itzrich Tarvai needs both of them, Chad La'ani, one for the ani, V'chad La'asher, one for the usher. So here Tosfos brings his first proof that it's a malacha grew, and in addition, specifically in this regard, that as a result, from the ani we wouldn't know the Balabayas, from the Balabayas we wouldn't know the ani, and that's why we have two psukim, one for each. Now let's just see it briefly in the flowchart form. We had our question. Why does the Tana make the owner and poor man into two dinim? We had the answer, it's a malacha grua, and therefore we wouldn't know one from the other. And then we have the proof that we bring two psukim to learn out Eitzah. One is Vayikale Am Mehavi, and the second pasuk is Al Yetzi Ish Mimkemei. And then we have the explanation for this, that we have two psukim. It's because one's for the ani, one's for the usher, and if we only had one, we wouldn't know that the other one is chayiv. Let's continue now to the second set of proofs. V'chein, and so to another area where we see that Eitzah is a malacha grua, to show this point. B'chol Tuldas Davis, by all the Tuldas of the other Avis, Malachis, Leichai Shinam, we're not concerned Shehei b'Mishkan, that it should be in the Mishkan, El Avis Bavad, nothing but the Avis alone. Only the Avis need to be in the Mishkan. The Tuldas don't have to be in the Mishkan, they just need to be similar to the Avis. Over Tuldas the Eitzah, but in the Tuldas of Eitzah, but Inin Shehei b'Mishkan, we make it necessary for them to be in the Mishkan. It's needed for them to be in the Mishkan in order to be categorized as Tuldas. And this is the reason for this is because since it's a weak malacha, Therefore, it needs to be supported by being found in the Mishkan. And now Tosfos is going to go to show this. The Tanan Va'azerik in 3 places. It says in the Mishnah on Azerik, Shteiges Ustrei Zukin Negedzu. If there are 2 porches, one across from the other, on 2 sides of the street. HaMoishid Va'azerik Mizulazu Pater. If somebody passes something from one porch to the other, or throws something from one porch to the other, he's Pater for doing this. If they were both in the same row, they weren't across the street from one another, but rather in the same row of houses, separated by Rosh Hashanah. Hazerik Pater, one who throws is Pater, V'Ameishit Chayev, one who passes is Chayev. Why? Why this distinction? Only in the same row and only Meishit? Shekachoisa Avedis Levim, because that's how the Levim did their Aveda. They passed the beams from one wagon to the next wagon along the row of wagons. So we see that in order to be considered even a Tolda, because Meishit's only a Tolda, Hitzah the Av, it needs to be found in the Mishkan. Uveresh Azerik, in the beginning of Perek Azerik, Nami Bai, it also over there, the Gemara asks, Hazerik Dal Ramish Rishus Rabim Minolan, throwing 4 Amos from Rishus Rabim. How do we know that it's Asar and Shabbos? The Gemara attempts in various ways to find how it was done in the Mishkan, found in the Mishkan. Adam Masak till it concludes, because of its inability to find it being done in the Mishkan, that Kol Dal Ramish Rishus Rabim, all cases of Dal Ramish Rishus Rabim, throwing, walking, all cases of moving an item 4 Amos and Rishus Rabim, Hilchas HaGemir, Zalach L'Moshe B'Sinai, V'chol Eilu Tul L'Deitzah, all of these, Moshe and Dalet Amos and Rishus Rabim, are a Tul D'Deitzah. Ninu, they are. V'lei Avis, and they're not Avis, She'ein Avis Elamem Chaser Achas, because there's no Avis but the 39. And nevertheless we find that the Gemara finds Moshe in the Mishkan and attempts to find Zerik, Dalet Amish, and Rishus Rabim to also be done in the Mishkan. So that shows us that even the Tuldas of Eitzah need to be in the Mishkan. And now a third example, V'gabe Achnasa Nami Amrinun. And also regarding Achnasa, we also say Beperik B'met Teimnim, Perik B'met Teimnim, Hey Melu Kroshim Mikarka Lagala, they carried beams from the ground onto the wagons, the ground of Rishus Rabim, and the wagons were Rishus HaYachid. So too you shouldn't carry in from Rishus Rabim into Rishus HaYachid. Once again we find Achnasa, which is a Tulda, needs to be done in the Mishkan. And with this let's bring the flowchart, we bring the second set of proofs. We find that unlike other places where the Tuldas don't need to be in the Mishkan, by Hitzah they do. Number 1, by Moshit, only on one row in passing, because that's how it was done in the Mishkan. Number 2, the Gemara attempts to find where throwing Dalet Amos was in the Mishkan, indicating that it needs to be in the Mishkan to be categorized even just as a Tulda. And number 3, we find that Achnasa was in the Mishkan. And with this, we finished the first part of Tosfos, which is the question and the answer and the 2 proofs. From here on, we're going to get into a side discussion. We presented information here that's going to lead to a question. So let's see Tosfos. V'im Tamer, and if one asks, Kevin da Achnasa is in Mishkan, since Achnasa, carrying it was in the Mishkan, so Matzar Chsul Kaman Ba'azerik, why do we need now any more that later on in Perek Azerik, the Frushe the Svara, to explain that it's a Svara? The Svara is Mali Afuki, Mali Yule. What's it to me if the person takes it out from Rishus HaYachid into the Rishus Rabim? What's it to me if he brings it from Rishus Rabim to Rishus HaYachid? Either way, he's transferring it from one Rishus to the other. The Gemara says, therefore, Hachnasa is Chayiv. What do we need that logic for? We already have it done in the Mishkan. So it's already categorized, it's already classified as something which is Asr. Why do we need also a Svara? The Azerik Dalet Amos Rishus Rabim. Now Tosfos supports this idea that it should be enough that it's in the Mishkan, because one who throws 4 Amos in Rishus Rabim, mashma, it seems from the Gemara there, the Yav Mashkachas Love Mishkan. If we would have found how it was done in the Mishkan, Havanechele, the Gemara would have been satisfied. That's why it's a Tulda. That's why it's Asar on Shabbos. So Afagav the Hasam like a Svara, even though there's no Svara over there for Zerik Dalet Amos. So why by Achnasa do we also need a Svara? Veishlemer Tosfos says we can answer the Isrich Svara Lachnasa the Balabayis. The loy have a Mishkan. We need a svara for the achnasa, the balabais that wasn't in the Mishkan. The achnasa that was in the Mishkan, that we said, hey melu krushim mekarkel alagolo af atam al tachnisu. Who was the one that was bringing it in? The person on the outside, the oni. So we only know that he's going to be chayiv. How do we know also the balabais? For that we have the svara. What mali afuki mali yuli? What's it to me if the balabais carries out? What's the difference to me if he carries in? Just like carrying out is going to be chayiv. Carrying in is also chayiv. The hey melu krushim chuluk is the case of them bringing in the beams into the wagon from the ground. Hayno achnasa da oni. That's the achnasa of the oni. The mistame bekarka hayuim them, because they were probably standing on the ground. Shu Rishus Rabim, which is the Rishus Rabim. So over here we have now a question with a support and an answer. The question is, if we have achnasa being done in the Mishkan, why do we later need a svara? And from the Gemara seeking out Zerik Dalet Amos and Rishus Rabim to be in the Mishkan, and that alone would be enough to classify it as a tulda. And Asar and Shabbos indicates, even though there's no svara, that there's no need for a svara. So why do we have one by achnasa? And the answer is because the case that was in the Mishkan was only achnasa of the ani, and like we explained, we can't learn the ani from the balabayas and the balabayas from the ani, and therefore we need to have the svara. Because the svara of Malei Afuki, Malei Yulei is basically telling us that there's no difference whatsoever. They're literally one and the same as far as we're concerned. Which is not the case between the ani and the balabayas, like we said at the beginning of Tosfos. From the ani you can't learn the balabayas, from the balabayas you can't learn the ani. Let's continue. So we're just pointing out that this is a side discussion. That's why it has the separate thing on it, that this extends from the original discussion. V'im Taimar, and if one asks a question now on this answer, Kavan the Ika Svara, so now that we explained that we need a Svara for the Balabayas doing Hachnasa. But once there's a Svara, Amai Isrich Bemet Taiminim, Lememar, why in Bemet Taimin does he need to tell us that Hachnasa is in the Mishkan, that Hachnasa is in the Mishkan? We need to say it. There's no need to say it. Even if it wasn't in the Mishkan, Hachnasa would be Chayev, because Mali Afuki, Mali Yule have the Svara. So once we already have the Svara, and we need it for the Balabayas, let us use it also for the Ani. Why do we need the case of the Ani to be in the Mishkan? Answers to this, we can say, the Tanale that he taught this case that it was in the Mishkan of Achnasa, not because we need to know it. We really don't need to know that's in the Mishkan, because we have a Svara. So why did he teach it? I did the Bailam business because he wanted to teach. Hey, may redo crush him that they took down beams me'agola from the wagon. The case of Eitzah, v'atamal tetzin, you shouldn't do Eitzah. So he just added on and said, and they brought in, you shouldn't do Achnasa. But the truth of the matter is, he didn't need to teach the case of Achnasa. He just mentioned it that since he said the case of Eitzah that was in the Mishkan, he mentioned where Achnasa was in the Mishkan. Let's see that point on the side over here. So if there's a svara, we asked, then why do we need any more to mention that it was in the Mishkan? Why did the Gemara find it necessary to mention that? And the answer is, he did only mention it agav, because he mentioned that there was Eitzah in the Mishkan, so he mentioned there was also Achnasa. But the truth is, there was no need for him to teach it us, because once the svara is in place, the svara already tells us that all cases of Achnasa are considered a tulda. All of them are Asar and Shabbos, even if it wasn't in the Mishkan, because the svara is such a powerful svara. Now Tosfos continues and asks on that. We're saying that he taught the case of Achnasa was in the Mishkan because he taught the case of Eitzah was in the Mishkan. Why do we need to teach that the case of Eitzah is in the Mishkan? It can't be that the basis of Eitzah is of teaching Achnasa is to teach Eitzah, because what do you need to teach Eitzah for? Says Tosfos will return the question and respond to it. Even though Eitzah, we know it clearly from a pasuk, so there's no need for it to be in the Mishkan. We do need to teach that it was in the Mishkan. It says in the beginning in the Brisa, Ein chayavin, one is not chayav ella al malacha, except for a malacha shekayetza, that's similar to it. Haisav Mishkan was in the Mishkan. Ve'im la haya maitza itzav Mishkan, and if we wouldn't find it in the Mishkan, haisav mechayav, I would make chayav b'chol malachas adaymus, by all malachas that are similar to malacha gemur, to a complete malacha. If Eitzah wasn't in the Mishkan, and we'd say it's chayav because it's written by Kol Amavi, it's written al Yetzei Ishmim Kaimei, a person, we would come to the conclusion that a malacha doesn't need to be done in the Mishkan to be classified as a malacha, just like Eitzah, and anything that's daimel, a malacha gemur, it looks like a complete malacha, and is similar to a complete malacha, is Asar and Shabbos, and it's not limited to the ones that were in the Mishkan. Even though it wasn't in the Mishkan, just like Eitzah, it's a malach and it's not in the Mishkan, and therefore we need to mention that Eitzah was in the Mishkan to keep to this criteria that it could only be considered an av if it's in the Mishkan. Now the question is, how could we ever imagine to think? We said hypothetically, if Eitzah wasn't in the Mishkan, we conclude that a malacha doesn't need to be in the Mishkan to be considered Asar and Shabbos. But we have a limud teaching us that what's Asar and Shabbos is what was done in the Mishkan, because the two parshas are next to one another, the parsha of Shabbos and the parsha of Melechas HaMishkan. It says Tosfos, v'hoda asmach, and this that was made close, Krod Shabbos, the pasuk of Shabbos, L'Melechas HaMishkan, to the Melech of the Mishkan, havadar shina l'milsa achviti. We would learn something else out of it. But we wouldn't say that it has to be in the Mishkan to be Asar and Shabbos, because we have Eitzah. It's not in the Mishkan, and it's still Asar and Shabbos. So to summarize the Tosfos, let's bring up the last part first. We basically said, even though it says written clearly in the pasuk, so why do we need to mention even Eitzah was in the Mishkan? We do need to mention it in order to keep to the rule that only what's in the Mishkan is going to be Asar and Shabbos. Because if it wouldn't have been in the Mishkan, we would say it doesn't have to be in the Mishkan, no malachas, in order to be Asar and Shabbos. How could we ever imagine to say such a thing? If the two parshas are one next to one another, we'd say that they're next to one another for a different reason. And this, that the pasuk of Shabbos is near Melechas HaMishkan, we'd find some other reason for it. And with this, we completed the Tosfos. So to summarize Tosfos, we had a question in the beginning of Tosfos. Why don't we need to say Ani and Usher for each one Eitzah and Achnasa? Just say Eitzah and Achnasa for all cases. And the answer was, since Eitzah is a Malacha Grua, and the Ani and Usher are not completely similar, like explained in the flowchart here, they're not completely similar, therefore we wouldn't learn one from the other. Then Tosfos goes on to bring proofs showing that Eitzah is a Malacha Grua. And then we had a side discussion which was regarding what what needs to be by, what do we need to have by Achanasa? Because we find that by Achanasa we have not only that it was in the Mishkan, but also we have a Svara. And the conclusion is that all we need really is the Svara, and the fact that we bring it in the Mishkan was just by the way, because we mentioned Eitzah. So one more time, just to summarize, the whole thesis really is about telling us that Eitzah is a Malacha Gru, and therefore we need to teach the Ani case and the Usher case. We wouldn't be able to learn one from the other. Then we bring two proofs to this and a side discussion.